and I'll be okay, but I'm finding it hard. Oh, here we are again, the little town street. I have spent the past week, you know, liking and supporting tweets that have bashed this latest Taylor Swift album. I am not a Taylor Swift music connoisseur. I think it was only when she was, um, masking as a country singer so many years back when I was just a teenager, and her songs were like the stuff of all these Western ideas of romance and love and true love, you know, and that were very rampant in the 90s, early 2000s, and all of that kind of zeitgeist, yeah. And listening to that first song, for me, our first song I listened to was Love Story, and I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it was everything. And I was a very big dreamer, I used to see myself as a romantic then because I really love romance, novels and all of that. So it just applied, and then I was having crushes left and right and center, yeah. So those songs, I remember them fondly now, and I even had to download some of them back again on my phone because people bashing her right now, yeah, is far removed from um, my expectations of Taylor Swift and the trajectory of her career, the way I expected her career to go. Um, and also aside from that, it was also for me music is like a time capsule. It is a time capsule for me. I used to go back to moments when I was, very, very much not in the present moment. The only thing I the only way I coped, maybe at that time in my life was music and books, basically just escaping reality through all of those forms of media. And so I was too busy trying to escape from that reality as probably a teenager and early in my early adulthood. I was trying to escape so bad, I used music and movies. So mostly music I used to escape those periods. So now that I'm living a very present life as an adult here, um whenever I listen to those capsules, I go back in time and I'm like, oh, this is what I was, feeling in that moment, and it's so precious to me, so beautiful for me to look back on it and see that all the reasons why I wanted to escape my reality as a child, as a teenager, you know, and it was mostly my fear of the future too. I wasn't sure of the kind of future I would have. I was scared for my future a lot. Every waking moment I was scared I was going to be um, nothing. You know, and now that I'm in that future I used to look at, and I'm very happy where I am right now. Whenever I go back in time with music, it's like, oh, I was worried for nothing, and I feel so much fondness for myself, um, just thinking about those moments. I feel so much fondness, and I can kind of perceive in a way because of the music, like, okay, this is how the world was, my world was then, and it was very interesting to. It's always very interesting. It fills me so much affection for myself and for the music here. And so this particular song I was singing earlier, this all Too Well, by Taylor Swift, is just one of those moments, yeah. And I don't think on my channel I need to make a video, like kind of bashing Taylor Swift's current release because I don't care for her. She matters nothing to me. She's insignificant to me, and there are already a lot of very very fine videos being made about the issue, yeah, about the whole, everything. And oh, thank you, Aubrey. There are very already plenty of videos made about those kind of conversations, and I don't care about that. Like, I'm very far removed from that. I don't want to use my platform to do that. I can enjoy watching it, but I don't use my platform to do any of that. So today, um, I'm going to now focus very much on hello from Kenya. Hi, my name is King. I'm from Nigeria. So I'm going to focus on this book that I have been, you know, kind of feeling a bit scared to complete for a while. Um, title of this book is Weep Not Child by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He's a Kenyan author. Hello, Preston. Welcome to the chat. Nice to see you again. He's a Kenyan author, so I finally completed the book, and I've done it to my chat like for days now. You know that I'm going to finish this book. I'm going to finish this book. And yesterday when I was like talking about it again, I was telling everybody that there's a fear in my heart, to reading the end of this story because I know it would sadden me and I would cry, and I wouldn't know how to process those heavy emotions. Yeah. My day is going fine, Pristine. Thank you for stopping by, for showing up again today. I hope your day is going fine as well. How is work going? So I finally completed it this morning. It was without fanfare. I kept the book by my side before I went to sleep, and I left it open where I stopped, and I just kept looking at it this morning, and I was like pretending not to see it. And when I was tired of avoiding it, I just pulled it over, and I kind of just like I raced to the end. It was not as if I wanted to rush to the end of the story. The chapters kept on flying because, like I predicted, it's a very emotional, heavy story with a lot of sadness, with a kind of tragedy. I wouldn't call it a tragedy in my view, but it is something that you mourn, you get for the characters in the book. Okay, so um, I've already narrated like maybe two-thirds of the book, so it's just the final third I'm going to try to get through today because there's so much to talk about in the story. And so I'm at this point in chapter 11 here. By this time, the state of emergency has been declared in Kenya, not pre-colonial Kenya. This was when Kenya was under the control of the British Empire. Yeah. And at this point in time, Kenyans were demanding their lands back from the government, from the so-called government here, and they now became these people called the Mau Mau people. So the Mau Mau people are they descended from what I saw on Google here. They are descended from this tribe of Kikuyu in Kenya. This is a tribe in Kenya, Kikuyu people. Yeah. So the Mau Mau people are the ones that dedicated their lives to like what demanding their lands back from these colonial masters, and they obviously rebellion here. So they lived in the bushes. They um, they were they had oaths of secrecy, that they forced people to take. Not, I wouldn't say they forced. I say they would make their members take. And again, they can make Kenyans are not part of this movement take this oath sometimes just to declare loyalty to the cause, to the nationalist cause. And so because of that whole uprising here, the British government declared a state of emergency in the country, in the land, and that state of emergency, they sent out, soldiers, officers to start, they put a curfew on the land. This is real life issues, yeah. They put a curfew on the land, and they put several watch officers here around, the natives, like Kenyan people here, they were at risk of being arrested on suspicious activity, yeah. And so those people somehow they were able to track that. These are our main characters from. They're able to track that his elder brother, his elder brother is a member of this freedom fighter, yeah. And so they put a very stringent watch on his family. So I don't know how to say. Maybe I should start to just give a brief summary of where we've gone through. But um, at this point in time here, the main character's family, that's Ngoto's family, they have been um, removed from their land, by the colonial the British man that took their land by force, Mr. Howland here. So they had to go and live, in poorer conditions with this other man, Mr. Nganga, who was training one of the sons of the family, Kamau, to be a carpenter. So the man was very kind. The man was very kind, and he um, gave them some part of his land, but they were poorer than ever. You get, and they didn't have a steady source of income aside from Kamal that started working as a carpenter. You get. So Boro is the second oldest son. The first son died in the First World War. Yeah, not the Second World War. Boro also fought in the Second World War, but he came back alive. His brother died in the war. And Mr. Howland is closely related to Ngoto's family, our main character's family. Ngoto is the head of his family. Yeah. Njoroge is actually the person that we mostly see the eye of the story. That is our view into the world of the story. Yeah. Um, I'm coming. Let me do something. So Ngoto is the father of our main character Njoroge, and so as I was saying, this family now they are poorer than before. They are struggling to survive, and our the eldest son at this time now, Boru, now he's agitating, to fight this British people on his ancestral land, on his father's lands and all of that. So at this point in time, yeah, things are very dire. There is suspicion on his family, that's Njoroge's family, that he's participating somehow. There's suspicions, and that suspicion is coming from a man called Jacobo. Okay, Ngoto confronted Jacobo, during the strike that the people of Kenya plan to hold against their British overlords. Yeah, they were like, they're not going to work anymore until they are giving better pay, all of that. So there was a strike, and Mr. Jacobo was on the side of the British man. He was prospering due to the favor of the British people. Yeah, and so Jacobo came to disrupt the strike, but Ngoto rose up and confronted him, and since then Jacobo has been nursing a grudge against Ngoto. But despite what Ngoto did, on behalf of the movement, and all of that, his son still despises him. That's Buru. And now it is kind of alluded, like there's an allusion that Buru has joined the freedom fighters. But something that Buru now requires of his father to kind of prove to his father, to make his father prove to him that he's serious about getting his land back. He was like, his father needs to take the Mau Mau oath, okay? And his father says no. His father is like introspective, he's telling us in his mind that he's thinking about it, that he appreciates what his son is doing, he supports his son, but for his son to force him to take an oath, it would be like a reversal of their role. Like his son cannot now be his father, that they are, cultural rights to be held, their cultural status to be maintained. The father cannot be taking an oath at the behest of his son. No, it should be the other way around. So he doesn't take the oath, and that further alienates him from his dear son. Another thing you have to know is that Ngoto, the father of this family, he's a very um, he's outwardly strict as a father should be. A father is expected to be, but he loves his family dearly. Like when I say love, it's not just love in the mouth. It is love that he thinks of his son with so much his son with respect. So after the death of his son, he has two wives. Yeah. So and all of the sons except from our main character Njoroge come from his first wife. The second wife gave birth to one son, Njoroge, and that's the guy that we're reading the story with, or through his eyes. Yeah. So the other sons, like all of them, in the eyes of Ngoto are very precious to him. And even though Njoroge is the last born and he's young and he's sensitive, he's different from his brothers. He has no ambition to be like a landowner or something. Yeah. Um, he is sent to school, to learn in the British secondary school, the British education. You're sent to learn to get an education. And one thing about the sentiment of the Kenyans at this time is like they're like, education is a good thing. Education is what will set our people free. It's what will set the next generation free. Even though, it was ironic that the education that was being brought was by their colonial masters. You get it, and it's just kind of like this um I don't know, it's kind of ironic here to see that, education is being hailed as this thing that would set, a people free, but the education that is coming is from the door. It's not like, can you trust the education that you are being given by these people? Do you get, like, can you really trust it? And I think the author was trying to let us the reader know his sentiment about education in general, yeah. And I feel like I want to make a whole stream about the author of this book, especially because he passed away this year, in May of this year, which was, I heard the news and I was like, wow, how interesting. Death is not interesting, obviously, but like how interesting it is that I got this book last year, but I only decided to start reading it early, like January, February of this year, yeah. And then in May, I get the news that the author recently passed. He passed at the age of 87. So, his life, he lived a long life, yeah. And then from what I read about him, he lived a very full life, yeah. And I felt like he would have kept on doing more and more and more for his people if he, lived longer, you get. So, but I just want to kind of chip in that the author, is not obvious, you get, but there is the way the author writes, you can see, you by yourself, you notice. I mean, that's what I noticed. He has this sort of skepticism about education by the British. You get education brought into the land by the British colonial masters. Yeah. So, anyways, so Ngoto refuses to take the oath. Yeah. There's heat. Don't ask me why I'm wearing this thing. It's so hot, man. Oh my god, it's so hot. I want to take this thing off. But anyways, going on here with the story, Ngoto refuses to take the oaths. Kamal, has become the major breadwinner of the family now, and there is insecurity about Njoroge continuing his schooling here. But so in chapter 11 now, there are different things that happen. Okay, Njoroge has written his examination for entrance into secondary school. What is called that thing in our country, sef? Entrance examination is what is called the sha, but it's an exam you write after primary school. Hello, Christine. Hi, welcome to the chat. It's an exam you write after primary school to get into secondary school. This is Nigeria. I'm streaming from Nigeria. Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. No pressure. It is an exam you write to get into secondary school. That is just one, just two. I don't know how they call it abroad, sha, but in Nigeria it's just one, just two. Pakistani. This is Nigeria. I already said so. So as I was saying, he had written this exam and he was not sure of his result. Yeah. Then I have to tell you that Njoroge has a friend in a girl here. Her name is Muihaki. Okay, and Muihaki is the daughter of Jacobo. I already said who Jacobo is here. And their friendship sort of existed in a bubble, before the friendship kind of existed in a bubble before, like, it was in a bubble while all of these tensions was going on to get in the country, while Ngoto and her father became sworn enemies. Yeah, their friendship still existed, and I think it was because they had been friends, since they were kids, and now they're just like maybe 10 years old, and it's not really real to them. You get, they don't discuss it like that. It's not so obvious to them. It's not affecting because their friendship is kind of far away from the eyes of everybody else as well. They have this parts they go through to stay alone and talk, and they see each other as siblings as well because Njoroge does not have a sister. So connecting with her makes him feel like she's his sister. You get, and then she sees him as a friend, yeah, but one that she really admires. You get, because they have this subtle, competitive streak, in their studies and all of that. So, at this point in time, there's a big news, and that is that the Baba is dead. Now, who is this Baba? This Baba has always been a figurehead, a staple of their community, of their small village. Yeah? His name is no. The Baba. they refer to him as the Baba. Yeah, he's very, very popular in the village because he's one that always brings up, the news from Nairobi. He knows all of the latest news, and he's one that also spoke about the strike as well and kind of sensitized everybody to the strike. But I don't think he was doing it as a form of like this intentional, push of information. I think he was doing it like the way I don't know if other countries have this thing, but in most African cultures, we have people that just tell us things, like we have people that just disseminate information to us. We have people that we go to ask for, what is going on in the country sometimes, and they just always know, those kind of people. So that's who the Baba, and that's the role he played in that village. But after the strike and the state of emergency was declared, and it was like very intense in the whole country. This Baba died. And then again, this person, Nganga, the man that gave them the land to build their hut on, that gave them a place to stay, was also killed. You get. So, and the way it worked was that it was just based off of suspicion. Everybody was suspicious of it. Yeah. So anyways, Ndoroge had written his exams, and when he went to the marketplace, he heard news about people that died, and he was really scared, you know and it was asking questions like, who killed them, and is it the white men, and people were just like, who can tell who kills people these days, those kind of things now. But anyways, Boro is still in the forest. Boro has not made contact with his family, you understand. So anyways, um now Njoroge and Mihaki, they've come face to face, okay. And Mihaki is attending she's set to attend a girls' school, yeah. But the thing about Mihaki and Njoroge is that Njoroge is very sensitive to his position, yeah. Somehow he has gotten a bit sensitized to the position that his father, played in attacking Jacobo, and how Jacobo is actually an enemy of the people, you get, and how Jacobo is like a betrayer, of his people, just because of what attention, from these colonial masters here. But his daughter, she's not saying anything like that. I was just like, let me talk to my friend, and Njoroge has been seriously avoiding her. But one day now they're passing through that their normal path that they used to walk through, and she sees him and she's like, he's pretending not to hear her. She calls him, he's pretending not to hear her, but she eventually forces him to answer, and he's like, oh, okay, hi, um she's like, yes, like, why have you been avoiding me? She says everybody in the village is avoiding her. She's not present, like she's not aware. Do you get that? She's not aware of the reason why everyone avoids her. You get, everyone in the village avoids her. And I'm like, I don't know, I kept for a long time now, I've been reading here. I started to notice how, ignorance is a privilege that is afforded, to the wealthy, to the ones that have access to resources here. You can afford to be ignorant because there's nothing your lack of information is going to really cost you. Do you get? You can always make up for it, you understand. Okay, she's the same age as Njoroge, and she's not sensitive to why people are avoiding her. To her, life is just going on as normal. Do you get? So it's just interesting to me, and it's like, okay, fine. Like, I just got this understanding here that ignorance is a luxury also that is only afforded the wealthy. If you are poor or you have a lower class and you are ignorant, you keep on, suffering. You need to get more information, and I feel like that is also what informs people of, I mean, the Kenyans at the time, of wanting to be educated or wanting their children to be educated. So anyways, um Muhaki is now in a boarding school. After that attack on Jacobo, she was sent to finish her primary school in a boarding school far from home. Yeah, I think she's there. No, she has an elder sister and two brothers. Yes, but she was sent to um be in a boarding school, like a primary school here, far from home, to keep her safe, I guess, and all of that. So Njoroge did not see her and he was happy he did not see her. So when she came back from boarding school, when they met in this part here, so he was not like trying to like not talk to her and everything. But she was like, no, because they are friends now, they've always been friends. Somehow she insisted and he agreed that okay, that they would meet in church service here, like they will meet at the church. You understand? Now, another important thing to notice that the British people came with their God, they came with their church. And the thing about coming with God and also being an oppressor in the land is kind of like, is that not like you would think on the surface when people talk about Christianity and how because of God people can keep their morals. If there was no God, people would kill and pillage the land and be evil. And it's like the people that actually killed and pillaged land and killed a lot of people and were like very blood sucking leeches on the land were the people that actually pushed Christianity all over Africa. They were the people that came with their religion and all of that. Okay, so religion, Christianity, as far as I'm concerned, can exist side by side with destruction, with colonization, with oppression. Okay, Christianity is very comfortable in such settings, you get, because I don't know how those people were able to establish, but well, we'll get to the part of the school and what they were teaching them in school, like in the British schools or British missionary schools for boys and girls and all of that. Yeah. But before that, though, um, some Kenyans, gave their life to Christ. They became Christians, they attended church, and then decided to believe in their freedom. You get from these same colonial masters, decided to believe that God will redeem them, God will save them. When they go to church, there will be services, yeah, like this particular service that Njoroge and Muhaki went to. The services, like there's this gospel that their teacher from primary school, his name is Isa. I don't know what I pressed now. His name is Isaka. Can you still hear me? His name is Isaka, and he came to the church and started teaching them from the gospel according to St. Matthew chapter 4. And he starts to read. And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. You know, all of that just to say, there's this line it comes upon in that verse, in that chapter, where it goes, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And then in verse 3, he raised his voice and went on, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. And it's just so sinister, yeah. When you say things like, oh, thank you, Christine. When you say things like, he that endured to the end shall be saved, it kind of pushes for Kenyans not to do anything concerning the situation they are in, the situation of colonial oppression. You get, they should endure it. They shall be saved. There is no active voice of how the salvation is going to come. There is no specification of what they must do to be saved. All they know is just sit in this passive voice, sit in this passivity, and believe that you shall be saved, which is very, very like, which is something that you can see it mirrored in societies today. Like, this is our society I live, this society I live in here, Nigeria society. Christianity is the norm. Christianity is the norm. In fact, like, you are seen as an outlier if you don't have a religious belief, and that religious belief has to be Christian for you to be afforded this perception of normal, this perception of, yes, normalcy, yeah. If you are not Christian, they'll be like, okay, let's manage if you are Muslim, and if you're not Muslim, it's like, so what are you? What exactly are you? It's as if they cannot perceive a person, without a cloak of religion. And I feel like that religion is also what keeps Nigeria in where it is, part of what keeps Nigeria the way it is, yeah. So anyways, in this situation, you can see the kind of message that is being preached, that he that endures to the end shall be saved. Who will save them? How is salvation going to come? When is it going to come? Just to the end. What does the end mean? The death of the people or the death of the colonial masters? Whose end are we waiting for? What end? You understand? So that is the how to say it, the non-specificity that religion can get away with, that Christianity especially gets away with. Okay. And then there's something repeated constantly over in this book. It is about darkness and light. I've already told you about the prophecy, the indigenous prophecy that came from the indigenous um, um, beliefs, yeah, in their God, that Ngoto narrated to his family, to his sons, about darkness and how there will be a light, and all of that. Now, when you read again this moment in the church, it ends by saying it was as if darkness too had fallen into the building and there was no one to light the way. You continue to see a lot of repetition of darkness and light and darkness and light. And like, can you really, like, that makes sense now, obviously. That makes sense. So anyways, this in this way, Njoroge and Nuhaki, they leave church here and they are going back home, and they start to discuss about the future as children and teenagers do. The funny thing about children is that people always look at children as, innocent, unknowing or something. But it's like children are very aware. I know I just said that Muhaki, was ignorant, and they lived in their bubble of their friendship, but still, I feel like we need to give children, credit. This whole issue that, like, when children are born and the next thing the only thing they look forward to is the future, because everything is in the future. Oh, you want to live the way you want to live is in the future. Oh, you want to be free, not to have to obey, confusing rules from your parents is in the future. You want to be comfortable. This suffering that you have with this suffering you're experiencing with your parents that are poor, and are struggling, don't worry, in the future, in the future, in the future. And so in this way, the way his family, as in Njoroge family, kept on insisting on the benefit of education and how Njoroge's growth and progress in education was going to free the family. Of course, Njoroge saw everything as the future. He saw his whole life in the future. He kept on seeing himself like he's going to be something in the future, and that something is going to what, save his people, not just his family, the entirety of Kenya. He felt like it was on him, and all he had to do was what, study. All he had to do was be educated, you understand. And so it is reflected in their conversation here. um Mihaki here is talking about what the church, the pastors, the sermon, was talking about, discussing it with um Njoroge here. And before they go on their path home, hello Samuel, before they go on their path home, first of all they stop by at, hello Prasad, welcome to chat. First of all they stop by at Mihaki's home, and they see he just, this guy, Njoroge is very, very scared of stopping by Mihaki's home, because Jacobo, he's scared that he would meet Jacobo there. Like I said, Mihaki is living in absolute ignorance, of what her father is at this point in Kenya's history. You understand? She just sees it as normal, yeah. And so she's like, no, come to my house, let's just, have a drink or something or whatever. And so they go to the house, yeah. And somehow they now meet Juliana, that is Miyake's mom, and they meet Jacobo. And Jacobo is looking at Njoroge, and Njoroge is looking at him, you get. And then Jacobo says something. Jacobo says, I hope you do well, because they're talking about school. Like I said, Kenyans were united in the belief, in their belief of education, and as a means to freedom, you get, and I believe somebody like Jacob was saying that no, don't need to resist the British people. All you have to do is just work hard, go to school, and then come back, and maybe the British is going to give you something out of the power, that kind of mentality. But anyways, Jacob says to Njoroge, I hope you do well. It is such as you who must work hard and rebuild the country. And in this moment, Njoroge felt something in him jump. He saw himself rebuilding the whole country. For a moment, he glowed with that possibility. And then he stole a glance at the home guards. He found them looking at him. Their red jerseys reminded him of the dead Baba. So, like I was saying, Jacobo is a protected. Hello, Prasad. Welcome to the chat. Jacobo is a protected individual in their community. So, of course, the British dispatched guards, to follow him everywhere, to keep him safe after Ngoto's attack. And like I said, Ngoto is not Jacobo is not seeing a grudge against Ngoto. Yeah. And so that kind of thing now, because Njoroge is a very sensitive kid. He obviously, it's not hard. You get, obviously this kind of somebody like Jacobo would have had a hand in the Baba's death. Obviously, nobody else would have that power. Nobody else would lead a British man directly to a local Baba that just tells community stories. Who else would place the British attention on him if not one of their own? Jacobo, all of those kind of things. So, anyways, he goes home. Mihaki is walking him home, and Mihaki is telling him that she's afraid, because the teacher said the world will soon come to an end. Another thing again, I keep on insisting on Christianity. It's like when Christians are facing a reality that is very hard for them to process, a reality that they are not equipped in their religion to fight against, to stand up against, to demand better for themselves. You get, they just start to focus on rapture. They start to focus on the world ending. You get, and it's just they just like, after all, everybody will die, and then I just pray that you go to heaven. It's a very common sentiment among a lot of Nigerians. If you push them to the depth and the ends of their frustration and their suffering, they will now show you that their final succor is what? In God, in the promise that God is going to come back and take them away from all of this hell on earth. You understand? So, anyways, but Umudoge says it is very hard to imagine everything destroyed. I mean, you imagine the blood and the bones of all people, white and black, mine, yours, and all. And she's like, stop, stop. I don't want to see all of those kind of imagery in my head, And Njoroge is in this moment, he's kind of talking to her like this, indulgent energy, like, oh, this little girl, like my friend, I will take care of you. That kind of like, he has this energy of a brother. Like I said, he has this brother sister dynamic, and he's kind of she puts him in this position of looking up to him, and kind of, how to say it, submitting to his ideologies in a way. She would bring her own worries, and he would suit them. You get, um, he said things like, well, for Njoroge says that, um, I was thinking that if Jesus really, really knew about this thing in our country, he could have stopped it. Don't you think so? No, that is Mihaki saying so, yeah, because she said she saw in the Bible that God said he will what? Destroy the earth, and the earth will come to an end and all of that. And she's like that, but God knows everything, yeah, and if he's seen everything happening in our country, he can stop it, if he really knew, he could have stopped it. But Njoroge believed in the righteousness of God. So he thought all of this would work out well in the end. You can see the passivity of his train of thought. Everything work out in the end. Everything work out well in the end, you know. And he felt a bit odd to imagine that God may have chosen him to be the instrument of his divine service. So he just said God works in a mysterious way. Another platitude that a lot of Christians use. I like this book so much because this book was written in 1964, and it's very, very, like, this book will remain evergreen. There's no time in history you are going to pick up this book and read, and it will not reflect something of the reality that we existing in this our contemporary world. Yeah. So, anyways, so this conversation, ends with her being just, really expressing the depth of her fears, you know, and he keeps on insisting that um he keeps on thinking about how, these parables in the Bible, how God used David to save the people of Israel from Goliath, how Samuel, and many other prophets saved a nation, and how, all of these things here. So, anyways, the point of this conversation is that Njoroge says, um, the point of the conversation is that at some point here, um, Mihaki says that let us just run away. Where we are, when we are able to, let's leave this place, let's leave everything. And Njoroge is like, no, I have a duty to my country. Like, he doesn't say duty, but he's like, in his mind, he's like, he decides like, I will not just leave my people. I have this thing, I have to save my countrymen, I have to save my people. That's why I am getting an education and all of that, yeah, but he does not really tell her that. She says that she's looking to him for comfort here, and he says that sunshine always follows a dark night, again with the light and the darkness. You get, we sleep knowing and trusting that the sun will rise tomorrow. And she gets angry. She says, tomorrow never comes. I would rather think of today. You understand? So since she's getting like so heated, or she now brings up the idea of running away together, and he's like, fine, we'll run away together. You get, and they're like, we promise to remain friends, always trust each other. You get, they make this promise for themselves, and then the narration ends with they move together so as not to be caught by the darkness. And these two, a boy and a girl, went forward, each lost in their own world for a time, oblivious of the bigger darkness over the whole land. Again, the insistence of darkness over this land. Now, in chapter 12, we are giving a bit of insight into Mr. Howland and Jacobo. So Jacobo is working closely with Mr. Howland. He's literally his puppet, yeah. And Mr. Howland, that's also obsessed with my land. He has been given this position of power by the British government in the land, yeah. That over this village, he's the kind of what they call them district officer, and Jacobo is his chief. So Jacobo comes to him and kind of uses his grudges to isolate and to lead to the arrest of his fellow village men that are, I don't know, on his hit list or something, yeah. And Ngoto is at the top of his hit list, yeah. So he says he comes, and everybody already knows. It's kind of like, I think it's kind of public, not really public, but it kind of like everybody knows that Buru, because Buru is not seen at home anymore. Buru is no more interacting with village people. Where is he? Buru is in the forest. That's the only conclusion. So and Buru is whose son? Ngoto's son. So Jacob wanted to use Boro to enter Ngoto. Yeah, so he now brought the attention of Howland to Boro, and he says that Jacobo comes and is telling him things like Boro is leading the gang, and Howland, are you sure that he's the one leading the gang? Jacobo says, you can't really be sure, but he's dangerous. I told you when you and I talked about it, and he ran away and all of that. And surely Ngoto knows his son's hiding place. Nobody knows where Buru is. Buru has not told his family anything about his location, or he doesn't. There's no phone, so it's not even possible. How would they send messages? Buru does not. He's not even interested in sending any message because he's irritated, by his father's existence already. He's disillusioned. He has no respect like for his father, that kind of thing. Yeah. So anyways, Haaland is like, all of these things you're telling me, haven't you planted men to watch Ngoto's movement and report on it? I say Ngoto, like, Jacobo hates Ngoto. He has a grudge, with Ngoto. But Mr. Howland also has a grudge with Ngoto. Remember, Ngoto was his right hand man on the farm, giving him guidance. Like, they literally worked together to build that farm into the glorious, ranch that it was at the time. And Ngoto was doing it because he was feeling he's taking care of his land, and eventually Howland to leave the land for him. To come to see that Ngoto, through conversation with Mr. Howland, realized that Howland is not leaving that land anywhere. And Howland, through the strike, he realizes that Ngoto wants his land back. But Howland in his mind is as if, oh, Ngoto wants to steal the land from me, someone that was my own darling, that kind of thing, yeah. But anyway, there's this whole catch in his heart. Anytime he wants to arrest Ngoto, he has this hesitation, and Jacobo is always pushing on it somehow, like, let's just arrest this man. And like, you can't just arrest him without, charges. You need to find him doing something and all of that, yeah. So anyways, what happens now is that Jacobo has some kind of push, because Jacobo received a threatening letter from the Mau Mau, yeah, and he submitted it to Howland, and the letter reads, "Stop your murderous activities, or else we shall come for your head. This is your last warning." And Howland is like incensed. He's like, what do you mean? Like, have you received such letters before? And he's like, yes, I received two. Well, I just said, let me tell you this. I'm like, how? You have to tell me immediately you receive, letters like this, and it's like, um, where did these letters come from? And Jacobo says, from Goto. It's like, how do you know? He said, I don't really know, but a few months ago, his youngest son was at my house, and so I suspect that he sent his son to drop that letter for me. See that kind of thing. So I was just feeling like, at this point, I was feeling very angry about the whole meeting with Mihaki, because I was like, Njoroge, I did not want you to go to that house. Did you have to go to the house? But so that whole kind of conspiracy theory and other kind of suspicious nonsense, baseless suspicions there, in the heads of people that are looking for something to, cry about, it will make sense. So they were like, Howland was like, you know what, just put more men to watch Ngoto's every step, yeah, and we'll catch him or something. But how Ngoto is that Ngoto has retreated, into the inside life. Yeah, he does not come out anymore. He does not relate to villagers. He doesn't have a job, and now his sons don't respect him. So he feels very less and less of the head of the household. Less and less of a man, basically. And then there's another interesting thing that I feel will come up more and more in this story. At the end of the day, all of this conversation now, we are just seeing men, men, men. Howland is a man, Jacobo is a man, Ngoto is a man, Njoroge is a boy, Boro is a man, Kamau is a man. The women play very insignificant, like, okay, they're not insignificant, but they are very not a push for the story in the way all these men have mentioned are. You understand? So in all of this conversation about men and centered around men, you'd see there's a subtle um conversation that is being had, if you pay attention, about masculinity and definitions of masculinity, from a British aspect, and from the African man. You get, like, how they see and regard themselves as actual men. Boro, as a man that has gone to fight in the war and survived and came back, he feels so much disgust for the man that he has always looked up to all his life, his father. He feels so much disgust, facing him, that how can you watch these strangers come and take your land from you? What were you doing when they took your land? And he's inconsolable, he's irritated, he's disgusted, so he takes matters into his own hand, to be a man, in a sense, for his land, to stand up for his land. And then Howland, the reason why he came to Kenya was because he did not have meaning in his life anymore as a man. When he came back from the war, and he was disillusioned, and like, he has to conquer something, so he set out on a journey to East Africa, and he landed in Kenya, and he conquered the land. He keeps on speaking about him finding this land and taking it over and farming it and making money and being prosperous as him conquering the land. It's just so important. This land is attached. At some point further down the narration, the story, you see where Howland will say things like, this is my land, and the author is like, describe the way he describes it here is like as if a man has conquered a woman, and the idea of another man coming to take this land from him, or demanding him to leave the land, is like a man coming to take his woman. Like, you understand all of these attachments to masculinity and defining your masculinity as a man, oh, as a man, and I like this book so much in the fact that there is a kind of message, there is a message sent to at the end of the story, where you realize that all of there's something being said, there's something that has to be said about being a man, definition of masculinity, how some people can lose their masculinity, or how some people regain their masculinity, or how some people express their masculinity, and all of that. And like, it's just an interesting conversation, that is also there, like, in the lines, in between the lines, as you read this story, this manhood and definition and reclamation of your masculinity as a man is there, very, very obvious. It's not very, very obvious because nobody's spelling it out for you, but you pick it up when you read it here. So anyways, the story continues with the fact that let me see let me see so there's this part of the conversation where Ngoto is going to Um, Ngoto is going to Bible study. Yeah, Ngoto is going to Bible study, and Ngoto is going to Bible study. But as he's going along the way, he's ambushed by British officers. And the Mau Mau are known to be living in the forest, in the bushes. Yeah. So if they see group of men walking in the bush, they will just automatically assume, and Kenyan men, of course, not British men, but Kenyan men walking in the bush, they'll just assume that what they are part of the Mau Mau, that they will say, have you taken the oath? They'll stop them. Did you take the oath? They'll say, no, I don't take oath, but nobody's listening to them. It's just an excuse to arrest them, to kill them, to create fear in the land. So this happens to Ngoto. Ngoto is walking to church, to Bible study with his teacher Isaka, and one other man. And Ngoto is working with another schoolboy. Ngoto is a schoolboy. Okay, he's in Bible. He's in a high school, a British high school. Okay, far from the land, far from his house, from his home, his village. So he took excuse from school to go to this Bible study with his teacher. Uh, and then of course, these British officers, this state of emergency guards, stop them. They don't hold the women. They ask the women what they are doing. They say, oh, they are going to Bible study. They let the women, they put the women to the side. They don't ask the men, where are you going to? The boys say, Ngoto, they say, we are going to Bible study. They say, do you have permission slips? And they show their permission slips. Like, what can you prove? They show permission slips, and the officers allow them. Then the two adult men, teacher Isaka, that's actually even supposed to lead Bible study, says, I'm going to Bible study. They say, where is the proof? There's no proof. There's no proof. So Isaka, they beat one other man. The man is like begging, for his life, but they are beating him. And then they want to now like scare Isaka. And Isaka say, I'm not going to anywhere. I'm going to Bible study. He's not scared. He doesn't show any fear. And the thing is irritating the officer. Yeah, that is has accosted them, and the soldier is convinced in his heart that Isaka is a Mau Mau. Isaka was a Mau Mau. And Isaka says that Jesus Christ saved me. I cannot take any other oath. You know how Christians are now. They can't take any oath aside from, oh, I give my life to Christ from today. So Isaka says, why would I take another oath? I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus. But he does not express fear in any way. You understand? And this soldier is pissed off and takes him away from the others into the bush. And the next thing Njoroge hears is a scream, and then bullets ring out. And they don't see Isaka. So Isaka is dead. And then we cut to Boro's moment. Boro is in the bushes. Yeah. Boro is in the bushes. And Boro is having a conversation with one of the freedom fighters. So now we have had confirmation that Boro is part of the Mau Mau. And Boro is being asked by his junior officer, like, don't you believe in anything? No, nothing except revenge. Return of the lands. The lost lands will come back to us maybe, but I've lost too many of whom I loved for land to mean much to me. It will be a cheap victory. Rora had now been in the forest for a considerable time. He did not care what happened to him personally. The Mau Mau had made him a leader of other freedom fighters. The ripe hour of his youth had been spent in bloodshed in the big war, that's World War II. This was the only thing he could do efficiently. There is something to be spoken about, to be said about, like, the after effect of serving in a war. They can't just be reintegrated into normal society, just regular society like that. There has to be treatment plan for veterans of war. It just has to be. The government cannot just expect them to come back after being on edge and shooting and killing for months, maybe even years, and then they'll just say come back home to your country. Oh, welcome back, and that's the end. They suffer PTSD. Okay, some of them struggle to find purpose in everyday life. There is no meaning. Hello, Mohammed. Hi. You know, it is tough for soldiers to be reintegrated, especially soldiers that have been active duty, be reintegrated into regular society. There has to be a separate plan for them before they go off into society and pick up the pieces of their lives. So Boro was not interested in school, was not interested in apprenticeship. Nothing made sense to him, of course. This is the book I'm talking about today. With Not Child. It's not romantic, except to consider people like fighting for their country as romantic. So anyways, he's having this conversation with um his lieutenant, you get, and eventually Boro says what we've all been thinking, which is that he wants to kill Jacobo. And he says Jacobo must be shot alone. We don't want any more deaths. You get, and also he wants to kill Howland. Yeah, like the lieutenant is like, okay, we'll kill Jacobo and Howland. He's like, no, just Jacobo, only Jacobo, and we don't kill any other person. And so the lieutenant is like, sometimes Boro seems so bloodthirsty, but then again, he's against people that he's against indiscriminate bloodshed. Yeah, he just wants his target to be killed, and that is that. Yeah. But anyways, that is just a little insight into where Boro is right now in the story. um it's not it's not a disturbance. You can follow the story if you like. It's not a disturbance. So now in chapter 13, Njoroge is officially going off to high school, and the whole village is pleased. Everybody comes out to, okay, maybe you need to get lost. Everybody comes out to send off um send off Njoroge, yeah, because everybody believes in education. People even like contribute money for him. It's like a whole celebration, that he's going to school. Although his dear friend Mihaki does not make it, like her marks are not big enough to make it to the girls' school, yeah. So she's instead sent to a teachers training college, yeah. So that's the big event that happens um in chapter 13, yeah. And Mihaki is struggling not to feel jealous of the whole thing, Mihaki is struggling not to feel jealous of him, but at the end of the day, she just is happy for her friend, you understand? And even more than ever, Njoroge feels this intense desire that, yes, I am serving my country, I'm serving my country, And it's so interesting. I'm asking, I must you serve your country? Like, yes, I must serve my country. We have a duty to build this country from, you know, bloodshed and all of that, and all of that, and all of that, yeah. So in this moment here, they are all, some of them are kind of saying goodbye to each other. They've known each other for so long. It'll be like the longest time both of them are like apart from each other, that they cannot stumble into each other anymore and all of that. So he's comforting her, she keeps on asking him, that, do you think the country really needs you? And he's like irritated at this point, like, are you doubting me? You understand? You get that? Your father even said it, that I'm part of people that will rebuild the country. And then she said the country is so dark now, and he triumphantly responds, the sun will rise tomorrow. Looking at her as if he would tell her that he will never lose faith, knowing as he did that God had a secret plan. Again with the never lose faith, again with the tomorrow thing, yeah. Um Anyways, all of that happens, and then he says she bathes him up. She kind of, yeah, it's okay, Christine, I'm still here. So in this chapter 13, yeah, they're sending off Njoroge, and Miyakichi is kind of sending him off as well. And so they have this conversation, and he's like, don't worry, the sun will rise tomorrow. I'm going to come, I'm going to build our country, blah blah blah. And she's like, oh, I've heard you. You do great things. That's what she says. She encourages him as always. And he says, thank you, you have been like a sister to me. And she's like, thank you, and she's crying, and then they part ways in that, on that rock, on that hill that they usually meet, that they've always met. So now the secondary school is Syriana Secondary School. Njoroge comes to this school, and funny enough, he sees Howland's son there, but they kind of recognize, like, Njoroge is like, I think I recognize you. And the boy is like, oh, I recognize you as well, yeah. So they're like, where are you from? You know, and then they mentioned the same village. And like, oh, I know you. You are Mr. Howland's son. I was like, yeah, I know you. You are, you are the son of Ngoto. Who? So he wants to say, you're the son of Ngoto who walks my father's land. Oh, first, thank you for that. But like, don't feel pressured, okay? Just if you have to go, just go. Don't worry, I'll still be here. Just go, come back, join anytime. It's fine. Don't feel pressured to, stay if it's not convenient. Go and come back, okay? It's fine. Just go, come back. It's fine. Um. So, anyways, they start to talk about something that I feel is very important here. Now, like I mentioned before, Stephen is a very shy child. Stephen was a very shy boy when they were small. Um, Stephen was a very small boy, like shy boy when they were kids here. So he could not really make friends with, he could not really make friends with the other children in the farm. You get that were working in his father's farms. Yeah. So, anyways, he said he was afraid. Stephen expressed a fear that that Ngoto's son would not have spoken to him, that Njoroge would not have spoken to him. And Njoroge was like, sorry, that um I was afraid, you know. And then Stephen was like, afraid of what, you know? And so they are both wondering why the other, was afraid of talking to each other or approaching each other, yeah. And they're like, it is strange, you understand, that they were so scared of each other. And I think it is okay, it is Njoroge saying now that it's strange how you fear something because your heart is already prepared to fear it, because maybe you were brought up to fear that something, or simply because you found others fearing. That's how it is with me, Njoroge was saying. And then Stephen said, I suppose it's the same everywhere. I've heard many friends, that is probably British friends as well, say that they don't like the way Africans looked at them. And when you're in Nairobi and you're enjoying the sky and the friendliness of the sun, that you are afraid of, you're still afraid in that moment here, because there is an electric tension in the air. You cannot touch it, you cannot see it, but you are aware of it all the time, And Ntoroke responds that yes, still sometimes it can be maddening, you are afraid of it, and if you try to run away from it, it's all futile, because wherever you go, it's there before you. And I'm like, it's colonialism. It's colonialism. They did not come to just be ordinary people in the land, they came to steal people's land. And their children can afford to express, their children can feel the fear, but their children are taught fear, and their fears, the fears of their children crystallizes or mutates, into something darker, something that persists in the act of settler colonialism. Yeah. um so, anyways, Stephen says it's bad, and Njoroge agrees it's bad. And in that moment, yeah, they felt close together, united by common experience of insecurity and fear no one could escape. And Stevie says, yes, the country is so cool and so absorbing. While Njoroge says, it is a land of sunshine and rain and wind, mountains and valleys and plains, but the sunshine. And Stephen says, but it's so dark now. And again, Njoroge now insists on saying, it is dark, but things will be all right. Which, if you think about it, is just very disheartening how, everything plays out at the end of the story. Njoroge still believed in the future. Hope of a better day was the only comfort he could give to a weeping child. He did not know that this faith in the future could be a form of escape from the reality of the present. So that's very interesting. You get, in the sense of what I was talking about when I started the stream. I was talking about how I used music to escape my reality as a child. you know, I used music to escape the present as a child. Anyways, they walked away and two of them are standing together and discussing. And Stephen says, I'll be away from home soon. Njoroge is like, to where? Where will you go? He says, to England. And Njoroge says, but isn't that your home? Stephen says, no, it isn't. I was born here and I have never been to England. I don't even want to go there. And so Njoroge asks him, do you have to go? Yes, father did not want to, but my mother wanted us to go. Anyways, Njoroge says, I hope you come back. And then Njoroge says he felt a wave of pity for this young man who had to do what he did not want to do. At least he, Njoroge, would rise and fall with this country. He had nowhere else to go. And then there's conversation about his father where Njoroge says, is your father going with you? And he responds, no, he'll remain here, you know. But sometimes I get the feeling that you're going away from someone forever. That's how I feel, and that's what makes it also awful. So Stevie was expressing a kind of fear, like an anxiety that, if he leaves his father in this moment, in this trip to England, yeah, that he would never see him again, you know. And so he now gets, the first, he gets a letter from Mihaki, which he does. He gets a letter from Mihaki, and she starts to tell him how her father has changed so much. Hello, Lawrence. Welcome to the chat. She starts to tell him how I'm reading this book with no child. She starts to tell him how her father has changed, and she doesn't know what is happening. That there's fear in the air, and it is not a fear of death. That it is a fear of living. And she's talking about how she's so happy. Oh, welcome back, Christine. And she's talking about how she's so happy that she can, at the thought of escaping all of it, because by this time, before she went to college, she's still living in her father's house here in the village, and she has heard news of how the Mao are burning houses everywhere, and she's scared and all of that. Anyways, Njoroge now, after reading the letter from Mihaki, he starts to wonder the kind of changes himself would find, when he came back, when he returned home at the end of the year. Yeah, that does he even really want to go home, Like if he went, misery would gnaw at his peace of mind, He thought it would be a worthwhile homecoming if he stayed till he had equipped himself with learning. So obviously, somebody that is escaping reality, will definitely avoid, reminders of it, imagery of it, and the reality he wants to escape is very stark for him at home. His father is mostly her home housebound. His mothers are like suffering. They are poor. Nobody knows where the other brother is. Things are just difficult, and then the village is rife with tensions from the freedom fighters and the British state of emergency officer. So Njoroge is like, instead of going home here, let me just stay in school and finish my school, and then I'll go home. And then here is where I think I started crying. When I started feeling so bad for our protagonist and my favorite character, Ngoto. So in chapter 15, what happens is that all through the weekend, on that's a Monday, before class start, like through the weekend, Ndurege has been suffering so many bad dreams, but when he resumes class that day, he's in high spirit and he's happy. And his classmates are like, why are you laughing? And it's like, what, you don't want to see me laugh? And they're like you don't laugh in math class, but when in English class and you're laughing, you get like, better leave me alone. And they're like, one of them now says that you should not laugh so early in the morning, like it's a sign of an ill omen. And then he's like, don't be superstitious, yeah. Hello from Kenya, welcome to the chat. I'm reading this book with not child. um Anyways, Njoroge is now like, okay, um Lagos is fine. Lagos is fine. Lagos is experiencing a heat wave, I think. So now the thing about Njoroge Secondary School is that there are British boys as well. Obviously, their parents are colonial settlers, so they will send their children to a secondary school no matter what. So in this school, there is a kind of like meeting of different kinds of people. There are British children, like they're all boys here, and there are Kenyan children, and they are like their teachers are they are taught by missionaries who are all British men, and their headmaster is a British man as well. So in the school here, there is no this hierarchy of a settler and an indigen and a local like a Kenyan man. There's no difference between the boys here. They're all equal. Everybody's friendly with everybody. Everybody likes everybody, and their headmaster is not favor is not does not favor anyone side. You get, he punishes the African child as much as he punishes the British boy. He praises the British boy as much as he praises an African child. So there's no favoritism in the school. The missionaries are kind, they are gentle, they are neutral to everybody. They are teachers, and all of that. Everything is just normal. So this school is kind of like, to me, it's just like this haven, this haven, this also a very big bubble, a very big bubble in a country that was experiencing such conflicting ideologies, such state of emergency, literally, yeah. For such a thing to exist in the school, why is it that they could not practice that? Why is it that it could not be done elsewhere in the country? You understand? Why is it that? But another thing you need to notice is that you need to know is that in this school, the British man is the headmaster. Okay, the British man is the headmaster, and there's an ideology that he proposes to his students every time, and that is that you need to always succeed to not succeed you need to always um, listen to the white man. You need to listen to him. His ways are always right. Whatever he tells you is correct. Okay, and Njoroge says it. But he believed that the best, the really excellence, could only come from the white man. So that is the philosophy that the headmaster pushes on the student to get, you know. And Njoroge defines it as strength. So, anyways, Njoroge is having his class as usual, yeah, normal day in school, and then one day, and then in the middle of the class, the same day on Monday, um, somebody calls for him to the principal's office, to the headmaster's office, and it's like, who could be calling for me? Like, there's no way his family is going to come and look for him in school, yeah. So but they call him to the headmaster's office, and the headmaster sits him down and says, you are wanted at home. It is a sad business, but whatever your family may have made you do or take in the past, remember Christ is there at the door, knocking, waiting to be admitted. Oh, shut the fuck up. That's the path we've tried to make you follow. We hope you will not disappoint us. And he sounded as if he wanted to cry. That's the headmaster. And at the end of the day, Njoroge still doesn't know why they are calling him back home. The man not telling him anything. Just said, if your parents have initiated you to something, make sure you give your life to Christ. Okay, God's always accepting people back into his fold. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, he doesn't know what is going on. And then we go through the horrors of the horrors, where Njoroge is arrested by the emergency officers, and they take him to a post and they start to torture him. And the torturing is described in such graphic details. Like, I screamed, and I was like, why the hell? Why? What did he do? You know? And the person that is in charge of the interrogation is Mr. Howland. You get, and different men are torturing this boy, and he's 19 years of age, and so he's in a dark room, and they pour light on him, and they're like, have you taken the oath? And he's like, what oath? Like, he doesn't know anything that is going on. He has been in school. What do you mean? But he cannot even defend himself. He just has time enough to express shock. And then they hit him and they beat him till he passes out. And when he wakes up again, they ask him again, have you taken the oath? He says, I don't know what about. He just says no because he's too tired. He's too weak. You understand? And they beat him again. And then Mr. Howland comes and, oh my God, I can't read it. It's too icky. I can't say it. It's too bad. So anyways, they torture him for a while, and then Mr. Howland now comes and asking that who murdered Jacobo, and as weak and worn out as Njoroge is, he's just stunned, like murder. What, I don't understand. What does that mean? Like he's like, how, who? And the men, the Howlands, like, you tell us who murdered Jacobo. I don't know. I don't know. And then he starts to torture Njoroge in a very, very specific way that I don't just I don't know if I can make a video about this book. It's so terrible, it's so terrible what they did to Njoroge, but they did the same thing to his father, and his father, actually, before they even came to torture Njoroge, they had already tortured his father Ngoto, because, and as they're torturing him, Ngoto realized what it was they wanted to get out of him. They wanted to get out a confession that his son Boro killed Jacobo. You get, but Ngoto in that moment said he's the one that killed Jacobo, and despite being tortured in the most inhumane way, the most like unspeakable way ever, Ngoto feels a sense of divine relief. He feels like finally he has been able to stand up for his family. He feels like he has been able to do what Boro has always wanted him, expected from him. Let me even read his feeling. He says, Ngoto says, like, him taking the fall for Jacobo's death was an act of divine justice. You get, and they were torturing him a day, for a whole day. Then the next day, he now heard that his son Kamal, the one that is a carpenter, was arrested in suspicions to Jacobo's murder. And then he was like, no, 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 it's not my son, it's me. I did it. You get. And then Mr. Howland um was so angry, you get, about the confession of Ngoto, and then he was like looking for ways to reduce Ngoto to submission. Do you get? For him, like for Mr. Howland, Ngoto had become a symbol of evil that now stood in his path, and he became mad where Ngoto was concerned that even the home guards who worked with Mr. Howland were scared to be present when Dio, that's Mr. Howland, was eliciting information from Ngoto, but Ngoto stuck to his story. Anyways, because Njorogede could not get anything out of Njoroge because he did not do anything, he was freed, you understand, and eventually they released Ngoto as well, and they took him back to the hut. You get, so Ngoto was in the hut when Njoroge came back from being tortured, and his mothers could see that he was tortured, but he did not say it to his father. He did not say anything to his father. He did not tell his father. His father was like, ha ha ha, you have come back home to see me, you know, to see me. And like, did they beat you? I was like, no, they did not beat me, and like, you've come to laugh at your father, Abi, don't worry, don't worry. I'll go home. So Ngoto starts to say, I'll go home, you know. And then Njoroge is like, don't say that, father, we owe you everything, what could we do without you? And Ngoto is like, your brothers are all away. He says, he'll come back, father. He says, at my death to bury me. Where is Kamal? Kamal has been arrested. So Ngoto does not want to tell, Njoroge does not want to tell Ngoto that Kamal is still in prison, So Ngoto says perhaps they'll kill him, But why? Why do they want to kill him? Don't they want an old man's blood, And he said, don't ask, oh, did I kill Jacobo? Did I shoot him? I don't know. A man doesn't know when he kills. I judged him a long time ago and executed him. Let him come again, let him dare, and all of that. So anyways, he was just rambling because everybody already knew that, I mean the mothers and Njoroge, they already knew that Ngoto was at death's door, And Njoroge says for the first time he was face to face with a problem to which tomorrow was no answer. It was this realization that made him feel weak and see the emergency in a new light. They had deformed Ngoto completely. His face was deformed by small wounds. His nose was cleft in two. His legs could only be dragged. For 4 days he had stayed. His mouth had been shut. His eyes was shut and everything. And then Ngoto is saying, Boro went away. He found me out, a useless father. But I always knew they would change him. He didn't know me when he came. And so as we were there now, listening to Njoroge just ramble on, at death door, Boro now came to the house. Boro I did not see him for months. Boro comes to the house and he knelt by his father's bed, you know, and Boro starts to say, forgive me, father, I didn't know, I thought. And then Ngoto says, it's nothing, ha ha ha, you two you have come back to laugh at me. Would you laugh at your father? No, I only meant good for all of you. I didn't want you to go away. And then bro is like, I had to fight. He's like, don't ever go away again, because he was like, he had taken the fall for the crimes. And bro was like, I can't stay. And for a time, he looked like. So when Boro is like, I can't stay, um a change came over Ngoto, and for a time he looked like the man he had been, firm, commanding, the center of his household. You must. No, father, just forgive me. Ngoto exerted himself and sat up in bed. He lifted his hand with an effort and put it on Boro's head. Boro looked like a child. All right, fight well. Turn your eyes to Murungu and Ruri. Peace to you all. Njoroge, look to your mother. But then he sank to bed and the light went out of his eyes. And then here, Boro stood up and whispered, I should have come earlier. And then he ran quickly out, away from the light into the night. It was only when they turned their eyes to Ngoto that they knew that he too would never return. Nobody cried. So, God. Oh my God, this is why I don't like reading stories like this. It's just so sad. And this is just one family, at the time, of a whole country's subjugation. And of course I'm crying. It's sad now. It's just sad. Like, if you even think about it, yeah, the people that call themselves Kenya's land and freedom fighters in this day and age, like, you'd see like a symbolism of them, a replica of them, as these people that everybody's calling Hamas, fighting for their country. It's so sad. Fighting for their country and being seen as a bad guy. And at the end of the day, they just want to be free. Just so sad. No, so Ngoto was my favorite character. I'm trying. I'm trying not to cry. The story is also sad. And if you look at like the real life story of sorry if you look at the real life story of the author as well, the author Ngugi was born in colonial era of Kenya, yeah, and his family also faced this kind of trial where his father had four wives, and he was the son of the third wife, and when all of this freedom movement was a real thing, the Mau Mau fighters was a real thing as well. And so his brother was also part of the freedom fighters, and that one was shot, you know. And another brother was also killed by emergency officers as well. So, and then his own mother was arrested, and tortured for a month. So it's just like it feels as if it's like they're reading a real life, event, and it's just very senseless. Hello, it's just it's just senseless, Sometimes when you look at things that happen in history and when you see it repeated again, it's just like why, you know, why? Don't worry, I've gotten to the ending of the story. So what happens at the end is that obviously with so much connections to so what happens, let me just say what happens. So what happens is that that same night that Boro comes to tell his father, that he must fight, Boro is actually the one that killed Jacob. Yeah, so Boro went to the farm and he went to meet Mr. Howland, and you know only him, Mr. Howland is not with his guards as usual, yeah. So he was not careful that particular night. I don't know why. He says he doesn't know why. And at the end of the day, he starts to ponder on his hatred. I'm reading this story by Ngugi Thiong'o, Weep Not Child, which is ironic because of course the child is going to cry. So anyways, he goes to meet Mr. Howland, and Mr. Howland, is feeling a lot of guilt about, doing that to Ngoto and his family, and can't understand why, he's doing that. So, anyways, Boro comes to the room to Mr. Howland's home, and he's like, "Hello, Mr. Howland, the guards are not there." And he says to Mr. Howland that I killed Jacobo. And Mr. Howland says, I know. And Boro says he betrayed black people together. You killed many sons of the land, you raped our women, and finally you killed my father. Have you anything to say in your defense? Sorry, my voice is shaking a lot, but I want to finish the story. Have you anything to say in your defense? Boro's voice was flat, no color of hatred, anger, or triumph, or sympathy. Nothing. Nothing. Now you say nothing. But when you took our ancestral land, and Mr. Allen says, this is my land. Your land. Then you, white dog, you die on your land. And in this moment, Mr. Howland is holding on to his life. He doesn't want to die. And then Boro shoots him dead. And Boro says, Boro expresses that he doesn't feel anything. He doesn't feel any triumph. He just feels he had done his duty. So outside, he fired desperately at the police home guards, who blocked his way. you know, but at last he gave up. Now, for the first time, he felt exultant. He's dead, he told them. So because of this whole news about Boro and what he did and Goto's death and Kamal in prison, now the family has become like this. Njoroge's, Njoroge and his family, that's his mothers and himself, they've become this kind of, I don't know, um, imagery to be pitied. Everybody around them pities them. People don't associate with them. They don't talk to them and all that and all that. So and now because of everything that has gone on, there's no way Njoroge can go back to school. You know, who's going to pay his school fees? I don't think they would even accept him anymore in the school. So he has to get a job. There's no food in the house. His mothers cannot work anymore, so he has to get a job. So he's working at a shop, and the children come to the shop. They point at him. They look at him weirdly, and Njoroge starts to see himself as an old man of 20. And I just want to say that your 20s are literally your war years. Like, you're going to fight wars in your 20s. Like, all those lies they tell us as children that, oh, when you're 20 is the best years of your life. That's a lie. Your 20s is literally when you're actually going to have to die and come back again to life to survive it. So, anyways, Mihaki's father has died, and she's called back from school to come home and process and the funeral and all of that. And so when she comes back home, she doesn't know what to do because like the whole reality has not hit her. And she keeps on saying this thing that Joroge used to tell her, that the sun will rise tomorrow. She's hoping that her father is in heaven and maybe one day she will meet her father. But anyways, everybody already knows that um Njoroge's brother killed her father, so that is how she saw it. So she did not want to meet Njoroge on this day. So anyways, because of their friendship here, she agrees to meet him. And so when they meet up, she's feeling very betrayed and Njoroge is feeling very guilty. He's the one that even asked to meet up. Njoroge is feeling very guilty and he's like he did not know about anything. He was in school, but somehow she wants to blame him. Anyways, they settle the differences and she starts to cry and all of that, and he's like, don't worry, I'll take on the guilt of everything. you know but something about Ojoroge here, he wants to see Mihaki, because remember the last time they met, they agreed that both of them will run away, together. So Njoroge is feeling lost. He doesn't have any meaning in his life. Education is not anything to him. He doesn't believe in God anymore. And then he starts to talk about what they said as children, where they were like they will travel to Uganda together and they'll start their whole life. And now Mihaki, that was even the one that was pushing for that dream to run away, she's not the one telling him that she has a duty. No, she has a duty, and that like he has to look forward to the future. And she's like, he's not the one telling her there's no tomorrow, there's only today. But she's like, I have a duty to other people. And he's like, duty and all of that. But anyways, Mihaki tells him that she cannot go. She has to take care of her mother. That let us wait for a new day. And she refused to submit to his ideas this time. And she walked away from him, crying deeply. While he was left in that spot, the sun was sinking down, and he says his last hope had vanished. For the first time, he knew that he was in the world all alone, without a soul on whom he could lean. And then the earth went round and round. So this is the final arc where Njoroge decides to take a walk. So his mothers are sitting in the hut and they watch him leave the house, when it's like towards the evening time here, and they don't say anything to him, and he just keeps on walking, following a certain voice that is just telling him to go and to go and to go and to go. And he keeps on walking and he keeps on walking, and then he gets to that place that him and Mihaki usually met, and he sits down there and he waits for darkness to cover him. And then in his pocket there is a rope that is holding. And so he prepares he prepares to um hang himself basically. And as he wants to do that, he hears his mother voice scream his name from afar. She can't see him, you get, she can't see him because everywhere is dark, it's night time, and there is a curfew. So she literally risked, like being arrested to come and look for her son. And she comes out with this stick with the stick is like a light. Yeah, it's their form of light, and she's looking for him and she's calling his name, and everywhere is dark. And she calls him and he doesn't do it again. He answers her instead, and he starts to walk towards her. And he saw the light, he saw the light. And when he saw his mother, he felt relieved. He gets, and then without saying anything, she hugged him, you know. She hugged him and she tells him, "Let us go home." And he followed her, saying nothing. Followed her, saying nothing. And he starts to think about himself that, wanting to, end his whole life, was him failing his father, him failing his friend Miwaki that told him to wait for a new day. And as they keep going, they now see the second mother. That's the first wife in Jerry. That's his stepmother, but he calls them his mothers. you know. And he now says that he did not speak to anybody. He just felt guilt, the guilt of a man who had avoided his responsibility for which he had prepared himself since childhood. And if you think about it, what was the responsibility, responsibility of what? Taking care of, like saving his country people, you know, freeing his people. Anyways, as they get closer to the home, a voice comes to his mind and starts to accuse him. "You are a coward. You have always been a coward. Why didn't you do it?" And loudly he said, "Why didn't I do it?" And the voice said, "You are a coward." "Yes," he whispered to himself, "I am a coward." And he ran home and opened the door for his two mothers. So that is the end of Weep Not Child. That is the end of Weep Not Child. And I don't know. I don't know how to feel. I was so affected by the story. I went to look up the story of the author, and I just want to say that thank you, thank you, Christine. Thank you for staying with me to the end. Thank you for staying with me to the end. Because I feel like, you know, stories are important, I feel like stories are important. I like that there are authors, in this world that can take, bad things that happen to them and create stories out of it. Get They can make meaning. At the end of the day, some of my tears is because I feel very inspired, you know. I feel very inspired, by the bravery of the author. The bravery, because at the point he wrote this book, that was 1964. I think there was still like some kind of military rule in Kenya. Yeah, I don't even know if they were yet independent then, because the way he kept on writing, there was another thing he tried to do in his country, in theater, and his stories were mostly against the government, and not against as in they're literally showing, in words and through plays, through theater acts, that look at the kind of situation we live in this country. This is not right. This is horrible. And the government literally, the president at the time, shut down the play, and then they arrested him for more than 1 year before Amnesty International released him as a prisoner of conscience. Then he ran away. He had to run away from Kenya. So it's just so, like, to me it just feels as if, people are living really full lives, and like, it's not about, whenever in Nigeria we talk about, oh, we need to protest the government, people say things like, oh, let's come out and fight, let's come out and fight. And it's like, there are other ways, to stand up against a government that exploits and oppresses you. There are other ways, and even if you don't have the courage to go out and fight, you can write, you can sing, you can create art, showing what is going on and how you want better for your country or your country people. And it's not just going to be for that moment, it's going to last for generations. You get, it's going to last for generations. And I just feel very inspired, you understand, reading it. So this is how. There's also another thing that is very clear. The thing I was talking about, masculinity, yeah, where, like, the way men, they subscribe to these ideas, that they teach their children, these ideas of masculinity, and at the end of the day, in your opinion, yeah, if you think about the way Njoroge, did not end up killing himself, and he decided to what, stay and take care of his mothers, you get, is that not being a man? Even though the voice in his head calls him a coward for not doing the obvious thing. And it's so funny, yeah, when people say things like, oh, go to war and die, or you die like a man, let people not come and stand on your head, those kind of things. And it's like, sometimes the ultimate expression of manliness, is being a coward when it matters. Do you understand? Being a coward where it matters. To me, Ntoroge's full display of his masculinity was braving the voice in his head and staying, for his parents' sake, and, you know, not running away anymore from his reality. You get, he stayed in the horror of, like, a failed dream. You understand? His dreams of education disappeared overnight. He could not complete his education, and his education ended up what is not meaningful to, what matters, which is surviving every day. And out of all his brothers, he was the youngest, the most sensitive. But now that all his brothers are nowhere to be found, even his father has died, he has to step up. And he could have run away, he could have run away from it and killed himself, which I'm not going to judge him if he did that. But for him staying, I think that is something that. And then he stayed, but then the voice in his head is calling him a coward, and he's like, yes, I'm a coward. You get, so it's like, I feel like, where we want to teach children, where we want to teach people about, especially boys, about the meaning of masculinity, the meaning of being a man, I think it's more about just living your life basically. You know, you have to live life in a way that you know best. You get, considering everybody else aside from yourself too is another. Even though me, I'll preach selfishness here, but I feel very touched, by this display of masculinity. Ngoto was a man. He did not have the guts to go in the street and fight, but what he went on a strike. He knew his family would suffer, and he went on a strike. And Boro was calling him a weakling. You get, Boro rejected his father and ran away to the bush. That's also another expression of what Boro's masculinity in a different form, very different from his father's masculinity. You get, but he followed his own calling, and he went to the bush and he fought for his people in a way. Then Ngoto stayed, and how he ended up, living up to that role of a father was him taking the fall for his son's crimes. Yeah, there was nothing anybody could do, even though eventually he died and his son gave up himself to be arrested. Yeah, at the end of the day he felt fulfilled before he died that what he he did it. He was a father to Boro, and even Boro came back and received what blessings from his father, accepted his father back as my father, my role model, my guide, that kind of thing. So at the end of the day, like, all these things people do online, and they preach masculinity to men, and your masculinity starts with hello Bidemi, good afternoon, welcome to the chat. Yeah, nice meeting you too. My name is King. Oh, I'm in Nigeria. I'm in Nigeria. So yeah, same here. Welcome to the chat. Subscribe to the channel. I'm talking about my thoughts. I just got done narrating this book. Weep Not Child. My name is King. So I'm just giving my final thoughts on the book. It has been a long journey, so you can watch my other videos for my storytelling about this book. But anyways, where I'm at in the conversation is that I'm talking about um, the definitions of masculinity, and how um, different people come online and try to teach little boys how to be men, and their masculinity starts and ends with oppression of women. Their masculinity starts with just oppressing women, with just threatening women, with just cheating women out of things, with just being an asshole to women. Like, I feel like we have lost the plot completely. You get, for these men to gain notoriety and fame and money just off of telling little boys to beat up girls, to kill women, to stalk them, to oppress them. It is so, like, at the end of the day, when you read books like this, you realize that the world is so much bigger than social media. You realize that if you allow it here, if you allow yourself to, live life, you see that meaning can come from different aspects of existence aside of social media fame and fortune and celebrity status and worship of fans and all that rubbish. It does not matter. It really does not matter, because if you read the, and I want to even make a whole stream dedicated to the author, because his life is such a full one. I stream on my phone, so I can't check Google on my phone while I'm using it. So I used to, I want to make notes on everything I've read about this man and then talk about it on the stream. But it's just like, it's not like these issues don't exist today. We still have issues, so many aspects of our lives as human beings on this planet, where we can find meaning, where we can apply ourselves, and be fulfilled outside of this fake artificial desire to make it, to be powerful, to be rich, to be famous. And me, I'm talking to myself, so it's not as if I'm preaching to anybody here. It's just when I get done reading books like this, I just feel like, wow, you know, like life is such a big thing. It's not just one thing, and and I enjoy. That's why I say most of my crying was just inspired also by, it's just inspiration tears. Yeah, I feel so inspired. I feel like wow, I want to, you know, impact my own life, through writing as well. I don't want to just stay in a bubble of trying to survive, you know. And then you start to that sometimes you can just dedicate, your day to just um thinking about some aspect of reality that, of history that is repeating itself. We're talking about Kenya, during colonial era. What about Hamas, that people have demonized in the media? They say, oh, Hamas are the terrorists. Hamas are the terrorists. It's the same way the freedom fighters of Kenya then were branded as terrorists. It was illegal for such a body to exist. Meanwhile, the anomaly here is strangers coming to somebody else's land and killing them and stealing from them and, oppressing the entire populace. That is the anomaly here. Thank you so much, Christine, for spending time with me. Thank you for comforting me. Like I don't take your presence for granted. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, charge your phone is fine. Thank you so much. I'll try to read another book tomorrow or start another book tomorrow or prepare another topic tomorrow, and then I'll show up on Wednesday. I can't show up every day. You get, I want to properly prepare and then show up so that I have something to say. But thank you so much for being here. My stream will soon end even so, but thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. I won't cry again. I won't cry again. All right, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for staying. So when you look at the situation in Gaza here, um how people, ordinary citizens decide that they will protect their people as best as possible. They are branded as terrorists in popular culture. They are branded as the evil guys in popular culture. You know. So, anyways, I just feel like another. Why I think that is why a lot of people always encourage other people to read. Like, just read. And even to an extent, I kind of want to be like, be careful about what you read. Like, as much as I want you, as much as I desire, more people pick up books and read, I don't want people to get stuck in that arc of reading lifeless, vapid, corporate, capitalist, consumerist culture produced books. Yeah, I don't want people to be stuck there. But at the end of the day, if that is what will lead them down the pipeline of actually familiarizing themselves with actual books, you know, I don't mind. But anyways, I'm so happy my time here today. Once my phone started, I've stayed online for more than like 1 hour 15 minutes, my network glitches. So anyways, I'm so happy that I was able to show up here today and narrate the story properly. Um, I'm so happy about that. Another fun thing about another thing I've discovered while streaming is that before, when I made books, like made videos about book reviews, the thing that really stressed me out was just this um, belief that nobody was listening to me, nobody would listen to me, and so it kind of made me feel so stressed about how to present, my reviews, to present my storytelling, you know but I'm glad for live streams because I've encountered people that even when I tell them story and I'm afraid that these people might not be able to follow along with the storytelling you get. So people will be like, oh, I actually understand what you're saying, I understand your storytelling, like I'm getting the story and all of that, and it's so encouraging, and I feel like it has kind of given me a confidence boost, to be like, now when I want to make a video, I kind of know how to persist, in my storytelling, not to be all like, not to give up, because I have this illusion that, oh, nobody cares, nobody wants to listen to me and all of that. um so another reason why I'm grateful for my live stream audience. Anyway, so that was fun. That was fun. Concerning the ending of the main character, Jorode, I want to say that I feel like that was a perfect ending for him. I like books that never end. I like books that feel as if you just stop. This is your last bus stop in the story, that the story is continuing without you. I like books like that. And so far, most of the selections I've made in this recent haul of my books have been those kind of story writing where it feels as if you, the reader, it's time for you to get off at your bus stop. This train will keep, or this vehicle will keep moving without you. And I love that. I love that so much. I love that this story is continuing with the protagonist here living another day, looking forward to a day with sun. Okay, looking forward to a day with a new sun. What did Mihaki say? What did she say? She said, let's wait for a new day. So I love that. Even though I have gotten off at the last bus stop of this story, this narration, I love that Njoroge lives on, waiting for a new day. But his wait for a new day, is not preventing him from living in today. He's not escaping anymore. He's not running away to anywhere anymore. He's here, and that is the end. So yeah, I'm very very grateful for today's stream. Today has been a very ordinary day. Today has been a very ordinary day. I look forward to spending time again preparing for the next stream, which would be on Wednesday. I'll get through to my reading. Wait, that means I can start a new book. Oh, I'm so happy. No, on Wednesday, maybe if I come online tomorrow, we'll talk about poetry. If I don't come online tomorrow, I'll start a new book. Oh, a new book. Oh my god, I'm so happy. I'm done with this too. Finally. A new book. So I'm going to start a new book this week. Okay. I'm so happy. Aside that, what else? I might come online tomorrow to do poetry. I'm not sure. But I want to talk about this particular topic here. I just hope I'm able to organize my day, my time properly. For the movies, I finally watched Cape of the Demon Hunter, so I don't know when I'll be talking about that. Maybe when I see the subscriber that asks me to watch it, then I'll make them talk about it with me. But then until that time, I just keep it in my mind. Horror movie, I'm still avoiding Crimes of the Future, so I feel like I don't need to talk about it anymore. I'm not going to watch it anymore. I'm just going to keep it to the side. One day spontaneously, I know I'll watch it without stress. But the emotional upheavals of reading this book, I need to recover. I need to recover. So anyways, yeah. What else? So I'm going to make a video review of these two books I just completed. I don't know if I'll call them September reads because I started them in September. But this is just like the middle of October. So I just like September, October reads. Two books in 2 months. Like how? Who cares? It's not about the speed, it's about how well. Yeah, it's not about how far. Is that the same? It's how well. So yeah, I'm going to try to focus on that when I'm making my video about the review. So these are two books I'm going to review. The Golden Ass and We've Not Child. I'm going to try to avoid details of this book. I'll just focus on the author and the notes at the back because I've narrated everything on this live stream. But this one, I'll have to narrate the entire thing because it is an odyssey. The Odyssey of the Ass is what I'll name it. Let me tell you a story. That'll be the name of the video. But anyways, yeah, these two books are what I'm going to um make into a video. I don't know when that video will come out. Maybe the end of this month. Maybe the end of this month. Maybe not. But aside that, yeah, I think that is mostly all I'm presenting. Tomorrow might be poetry. I've already said that here. Tomorrow might be poetry. Tomorrow might be not poetry. I don't know. I'm not sure. But thank you so much for being here. Subscribe to the channel, support me. I want to keep making videos like this. I like talking about books. It's very, it makes my world so big, you know. Even though I'm in just this one corner of the earth here, it feels as if my heart has, expanded, to process the bigness of the galaxy and all of that and all of that. So it's so important to me. So, and I want to keep doing it. So please subscribe. Subscribe, and I hope you enjoy one of some of what I do here as well. Yeah. So I have to go. I have to go. Thank you so much for spending time with me. And I'll see you in the next live stream. Bye bye.